Welcome to the Korea Pro Podcast, your weekly guide to understanding the most pressing and complicated developments shaping South Korea. We're your hosts, Jeongmin Kim,
John Lei,
and Joon Ha Park of Korea Pro.
Go beyond headlines as we explain not just what happened, but also what really matters and why it matters.
If you monitor South Korea for work or just trying to keep up, you're in the right place.
This is the Korea Pro Podcast. Welcome back, listeners. We are recording on May 22nd, Thursday, a little over 4:30. And today, Joon Ha and Jeongmin of Korea Pro is joining the podcast. Let's start with what happened over the weekend. There was the first TV debate.
Yeah.
Did you watch the full thing?
I did not, no.
It required a lot of patience.
It did. I just watched the highlights and a couple replays, but yes, talk us through it. What went through?
I did try watching the entire 2 hours, taking notes, but it was supposed to be about the economy, the economic pledges,
Sure.
Financial, economic, business-related pledges, and there are a lot. If you look into the NEC version, the National Election Commission submitted version of, top 10 stuff, much of the, especially the two top candidates, Kim Moon-soo and Jae-myung, the ruling party candidate and the opposition party candidate, they really focused a lot on economic pledges like, AI, Kangguk, the great power when it comes to AI technology and a lot of deregulation related stuff and something related to commercial act as well. There were a lot to really go into. And also Lee Jun-seok, the Reform Party candidate, also mentioned a couple of deregulation related issues in his top 10 pledges. But what happened in the actual debate was they did touch on some of the pledges and they did debate a little bit. But it very quickly veered into non-economy related topics, such as, the insurrection charges, who's at fault, all the scandal-related stuff. They even mentioned foreign relations,
the
trade.
Xie remark.
Yeah, Xie remark by Jae-myung in the past. Lee Jun-seok and Kim Moon-soo were both attacking Lee over it, and Lee were basically reiterating that was in line with his policy pledge. Very convenient because it's pragmatic. Pragmatic could mean a lot of things. So they did touch on a lot of foreign relations issues. So let me go into that a little bit first. Like you mentioned, Kim Moon-soo and Lee Jun-seok focused a lot on attacking Lee Jae-myung's past remarks as pro-North Korea, pro-China, and so on and so forth. So because of that, Kim Moon-soo also mentioned the North Korea remittance case that is still ongoing. And Kim Moon-soo was saying, how could you not know that your deputy was working on sending money to North Korea, so on and so forth. But Lee Jae-myung was basically saying, well, that's a claim. And also he did this sort of a
rebuttal.
Cheap shot rebuttal saying, you were in a similar situation in a similar trial before. You didn't know what was going on.
Right.
So from the perspective of the voters and those watching the television debate, we're like when are you going to stop talking about these non-econ related stuff? This is the most important thing right now. And they did mention tariffs, a tariff negotiation. If you look at the actual policy pledges, which, to be fair, only Lee Jae-myung had a lot of time to prepare. So Lee Jae-myung is the longest.
Sure.
Kim Moon-soo had really, really little time to prepare because of
various reasons.
Yeah, various reasons, including he's been the candidate for 3 seconds so far. So it's short and it's not his fault, I think. But still, I think Kim Moon-soo was the only person that mentioned tariff in the actual policy pledges. But very bold. He said that he will do a U.S.-South Korea summit immediately after inauguration if he's elected and come up with a deal that benefits South Korea. He does not mention how. But Lee Jae-myung, largely in his policy pledge, the top 10 one, he's trying to be careful. He's not promising anything that where he has to maybe later on revisit or external factor related stuff, including tariffs. So he does not mention tariff actually in the pledge, which is interesting. And in the debate, Kim Moon-soo was saying that he wants to aim at July 6th, very, very specific, before the July package. And then Lee Jun-seok and Lee Jae-myung, Kwon Young-guk, everybody. Kwon Young-guk is the former Justice Party, now renamed to Democratic Labor Party. They were all attacking Kim now for trying to rush it too much when other countries in the region and outside the region are actually using the delaying strategy.
Steady strategy, yeah.
Right, and so sort of being outside Trump's radar until he notices. And so Lee Jae-myung in the debate as well, he did not really come up with any specific dates or anything when it comes to tariff negotiations.
And just moving on, so just on Sunday, actually, on May 18th, the anniversary of the democratic movement, Lee Jae-myung released a statement. He's been delaying that statement for quite some time on constitutional reform.
Which raised eyebrows.
Which raised quite a lot of eyebrows, especially considering, as I've just mentioned, when Woo Won-sik, the National Assembly Speaker, was raising the idea of constitutional reform to be included in a sort of referendum vote during the June 3rd presidential election.
Yeah, and he has been talking about that with both the Democratic Party and the ruling party.
And the ruling
People Power Party.
So the ruling People Power Party, they have been quite vocal in the idea for constitutional reform, while the Democratic Party has focused mainly on the idea of making sure that the current deran, or insurrection, is complete and done and over with.
Looking into the accountability and punishment is complete is what
yeah.
they mean, right?
And what
that grammatically does not make sense, their pledge, right?
And what Lee Jae-myung was proposing, compared to Kim Moon-soo, who released another statement that actually agreed with Lee Jae-myung's policies, but offered sort of starkly different sort of power balance displays.
And the goal and the motivations also different.
Exactly, yeah. And both advocate for ending the current single 5-year presidency, as outlined in Article 70 of South Korea's constitution.
Which is what South Koreans call 제6공화국, the Sixth Republic after the democratic movement.
Yeah, in 1987. So South Korea currently holds the 1987 constitution within its own democratic order. But of course, Lee Jae-myung and other politicians have sort of sought issue with the 1987 era constitution and are looking to update the constitution to fit the current mode of democratization that South Korea is currently experiencing. And so what Lee Jae-myung was proposing was a 4-year consecutive term, a yeonimje, with guardrails. So these guardrails would be including a prime minister to be nominated by parliament, with confirmation powers extended to major appointments, including the prosecutor general, the communications regulator. It also looked to strengthen the Board of Audit and Inspection, the BAI, making it accountable and under the jurisdiction of the National Assembly instead of the presidential office, and ending the prosecution's exclusive warrant authority, among others. And
that's quite broad, right?
And actually, before Kim Moon-soo, Lee Jae-myung was suggesting a national referendum for this during the 2026 local elections or the 2028 general elections, aligning with reforms to the 2030 presidential election when Lee Jae-myung, if elected, ends his term. On contrast, Kim Moon-soo supports Lee's idea of changing to a 4-year term, but on completely different terms. So Kim Moon-soo, on the other hand, he was focusing on, so he supported Lee Jae-myung's idea of constitutional reform and changing to a 4-year system, but took a slightly more cautious stance on term limits. He was warning against, and I quote, potential Putin-style power entrenchment under a Lee Jae-myung style consecutive re-election model under the yeonimje model. So his alternative was shifting to a 4-year non-consecutive term, a 중임제, which a president can serve 2 terms if re-elected. And if not re-elected, he can run again, just as Trump did with the U.S. election. And he was suggesting shortening the next presidential term, so his own presidential term, if elected, to 3 years, aiming for a joint presidential and legislative elections in 2028.
So to match the term cycle of the public officials, right? So I think that makes a lot of sense, but it's interesting because he's saying, I will sacrifice my own term if I get elected.
Sure.
And that's a big if you look at the polls. And meanwhile, Lee Jae-myung has been very, very cautious about it so far. But come Sunday, he referred to it. Did he mention the preamble as well?
Yes, so he mentioned the preamble of the May 18th, including the May 18th democratization movement and also the protest against martial law, something to be included in the preamble to the Constitution as a reflection of South Korea's democratic struggle. However, of course, he acknowledged the fact when faced with criticism from Kim Moon-soo's camp about the idea of a Putin-style entrenchment, power entrenchment. He was saying that, referring to Article 128 of the South Korean Constitution, which says that the sitting president who undertakes constitutional reforms those reforms will not apply to him or her.
That was actually very interesting. Another moment of raising eyebrows. Just to go back to what kind of pledges came out so far, just to clarify, we don't have like so much time to go into every single hundreds of pledges today. But the econ debate is over. So the next one is, we'll talk about it in the week ahead as well, but social, and then there's politics, right? So there are different categories under the 10 top pledges. And some of the smaller topics will be merged into these three topics. And so far, there is no separate stuff on defense and foreign relations. So it will just be mentioned here and there, it seems. To just flag some of the biggest things so far that were in the debates, and also their different policy direction platforms, which is different from the NEC ones. And when it comes to the political reform, Lee Jun-suk's thing right now is to limit the number of ministries and merge things together. For instance, removing unification ministry, creating foreign and unification ministry. And Kwon Young-guk, for instance, also his big thing is voluntary conscription rather than the current version. Labor market issues. This was also one of the biggest topics in the past week. 4.5 work week was one of the biggest debates since Sunday, because these were also in their official top 10 pledges as well, right? Kim and Lee are both saying that we need 4.5, but the method is different, and it's actually quite hilarious. Lee is saying that the overall labor time should be shortened to match with the OECD level in 2030s. But Kim is saying, so it's basically Friday you work less, right?
Right.
But Kim is saying, yeah, Friday work less, but you have to work more from Monday to Thursday to be able to match the total work hour per week so that the businesses aren't hurt. So they're coming up with this different ideas, but in the same numbers in the pledges.
Right.
Yeah. So when you read these pledges, you have to read them very, very carefully. And another big thing, lastly, was the AI. It was one of the, along with the capital market pledges, AI pledge, Kim and Lee both mentioned 100 trillion won for the AI. But if you read closely, they're not saying that they will fund it totally. Lee is saying 민간, private. It will come from the private, but the state will lead the initiative, which means the government will take credit for the companies that fit the bill, basically.
Sure.
From the business perspective. And Kim Moon-soo's version is 민관, public and government. But if you look closely, he does not mention how this will be funded.
Sure.
So these issues, you have to look closely when you are reading if it relates to your sector. Lastly, capital markets, a commercial act amendment, one of the biggest things in the past few months. Lee has slightly mentioned it in the NEC version, and this was one of the biggest things in the econ debate. And he is actually doubling down, saying that he will amend it so the shareholders will get more rights. Kim Moon-soo is going with the usual unit administration version of Capital Market Act to not amend the Commercial Act, but to continue the unit administration direction.
And just moving on, so just on the advocation of time, so SK Telecom, some new revelations came out the past couple of days of potential hacking from a foreign outsource. Could you tell us a little more about that?
Right. There were a few exclusives about that. There were reports the government is denying it. Rather than denying, they're saying they're still investigating, right? But there were a couple of South Korean media exclusives saying that it has been a few days that since we have seen some media reports pointing to potential China threat, China attack. But some are also saying, like Moon Ha-ilbo, for instance, is saying the origin of the attack could have been North Korea, went through China for the attack. We don't really know whether this was state-backed attack or not so far. There are just rumors about it. But what has been clear in the past few days is that it's been 3 years since they were hacked.
Right.
And they actually did not know all that much about it. And a video went viral in the meantime where SKT was briefing journalists and everybody about this hack, like what kind of measures they are taking. And in the background, on the whiteboard, there was a password printed out, which was not a great optic. Maybe that was just Wi-Fi, but still, that's not great optics, right?
Looking to stay informed about South Korea's fast-evolving political, business and cultural landscape? Join us on Korea Pro, the go-to resource for in-depth analysis expertly curated by top-tier professionals. And now you can pick the membership level that best suits your needs, thanks to our new subscription packages. Starting at just $199 annually, you can access daily analysis and our weekly podcast. Or try our premium membership package, which offers additional perks such as executive briefings, monthly reports and forecasts, networking receptions and event opportunities, as well as much, much more. To find the best fit for you, just head to signup.koreapro.org and become a member today.
Week ahead.
Yep, so a debate will be happening just tomorrow, local time on Friday. It will be broadcast and it will be covering society and culture issues. It will involve a Democratic Party candidate, Lee Jae-myung, People Power Party candidate, Kim Moon-soo, Democratic Labor Party candidate, Kwon Young-guk, and the new Reform Party candidate, Lee Jun-seok, vying for each of their public statements.
Another thing that's happening next week is early voting. It's from Thursday to Friday, every day from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So this system exists in South Korea because sometimes you live in a district that you are not actually registered. In this case, you can vote wherever nearby, find the booth, and you can just vote there.
And additionally, the final debate on politics will be happening on the 27th. That's next Tuesday, so stay tuned for that as well.
And right now, Korea Pro team is working very, very hard to read all the policies and the Facebook posts and the policy direction notes and the policy pledges and Twitter remarks and everything so that you don't really have to go into that. And we are writing a series on all the pledges. The NEC versions and the debate versions will come up soon, along with the policy direction notes that the candidates are announcing separately. Stay tuned. And that's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in.
If you want to know more, sign up for our daily executive briefings. We'll brief you on all you need to know from the past 24 hours and why it matters, delivered to your inbox every morning.
If you want to stay ahead of the curve, sign up for Korea Pro to get a full package of insights, from daily expert analysis to profiles, month in review, week ahead, and more.
And until next time, I'm Jeongmin Kim.
I'm Joon Ha Park.
And I'm John Lee, and we'll see you next time on the Korea Pro Podcast.